Oh, this is live.
Yo, yeah, you're already live. Look at that. Checking mics and everything.
Yeah, hopefully this is working.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out real soon, won't we?
Wow, I am stupid loud.
Well, embrace that loud life. I have. I'm a loud individual. It's the one thing I've never been accused of is being quiet.
I'm killing my side. It says there's 15 people watching, but I'm one of them, so I don't know if that counts. Um, but I got this thing open on the side. How's it going, Philip?
Man, it's good. I'm sitting here looking at your pedal shells back there. They look great. I need to go ahead and buy those at some point.
I'm trying to decide. I have two more shelves. Do I put them in the gap? Because I've had this other idea I've talked about on the show of putting like a, I don't know what that space is. It's about 15 wide, or it's about 15 tall, 15 inches tall,
Right?
which is like 30 centimeters, I think.
Okay.
And however wide it is, that is the string swing from the video, Matt. Um, so I can fit two more shelves in there, obviously, because I have two on the right side.
Right?
Um, but I've been wanting to do this thing for a long time of just putting in a canvas and just covering it in stickers. So I think
Oh,
I may do that at least once. I do still have probably enough pedals to fill up one more shelf,
yeah.
but I also have, one empty pedal board. I've got one pedal board that I think is only half populated. So once I start kind of repopulating pedal boards, which I need to do, then maybe I don't actually need those shelves.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I want to get some because just it's a blank wall behind me. So it's a lot, and so I need to fill that space behind me with something. uh Actually, let me see if I can. The camera is My camera has decided to move in the middle of the night, apparently. But yeah, it's just blank wall, and so I don't know that I want to hang guitars. um I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out. I thought about, actually, I've got a bunch of scrap wood. I thought about building like a backing board for guitar hangers, and that way I can mount the backing board to the studs and mount guitars to that and be really secure. But I don't know. It's You tell me.
Yeah, I like having it up for ease of access, but how deep is your room? Like your room looks deep, but I don't know if that's actual depth because my room also. I guess when I look at the camera, my room also looks deep,
Right.
but it's not. It's like a 9.5 by 9.5.
Mine's more like 11 by 11. So if I turn and I reach all the way, I'm about halfway into the room. So it's the same distance again from my hand to that wall as it is from my hand to this wall. So
Gotcha.
it's about
Yeah.
10 or 11 by 11.
I feel like I'm already sitting about halfway deep in this room as
yeah.
is. So
Yeah.
so there's that. Um, let's see. I just want to hit a couple questions real quick. I don't know, maybe later. So Snarky brings up if we throw up a link, I might throw up the link later to join. I think if so something I want to do with these, I was thinking about last night. When the when we throw up the link, I want to try to I know Ryan likes to do hangouts. Hangouts are fun for specific things. I think if I throw up the link later, it's going to be like I want to use it like a hot mic. Keep it pretty Q&A. So
Oh yeah.
I would just say if you want to jump on the live stream, jump on the live stream. Just have something prepared to say and say your thing, and then it's gonna. Thanks for your question, and I'm gonna bounce you out. Just to keep it, just to try to keep it moving, just to try to keep the bandwidth going. Just I think there's time. There's times for hangs, and there's time or for like everyone. We put 10 people in the room, and everyone's talking over each other, and that's fun. And there's
Can be
times where,
anyway.
like Sassy says, show and tell. Yeah, show and tell, and they get the hell out. That sounds so mean. Patrick doesn't know who I am. Hi, Patrick. I'm Steve. I'm in about 30-ish percent, 40% of the 60 Cycle Hum videos, but I'm on the podcast, which a lot of people know us for our gear demos, pedal demos, guitar demos, which that's Ryan does that pretty much solely. I'm in like less than 1% of those videos. Philip is from the 40 Watt podcast, and I need to listen to your new episode.
Oh yeah, it was fun, dude.
With Hillary. Hillary's great. Great. I was actually on her. I was one of her Q&A people on her NAMM episode.
Yeah, listen to that.
And that was fun to do. And then I realized after I did it that I was like so hyped on the floor of NAMM that maybe like I said things I shouldn't have said, but that's okay.
I don't think you said anything you shouldn't have said. You said things that needed to be said.
Yeah, it's so that's she's real fun, and I really like what she's doing. But yeah, when you and I talked about this originally, we were talking about maybe going over some of this week in guitar news.
Yeah. So I've got this idea for a weekly, maybe not weekly. Weekly's hard.
Weekly is hard.
Well, especially y'all it's like my life got real crazy. My wife had to have surgery. I don't mind saying that publicly, but nothing too serious. Thankfully, it turned out not to be, but it will like turned my entire like last month and a half, on its ear. And so things didn't get done. And so there were a couple of weeks I went without a podcast. Weekly, and when it's not your full-time gig, like it is with Ryan, this is his full-time job. You and I have other full-time jobs. Weekly gets hard, but I have this idea. Sure. I want to do a legitimate like set up a I don't know if I do it in OBS or in Riverside or in something or some type of setup where it's legit like news broadcaster style. This week in gear, and it's almost like comedic takes on it. Like not going to try to cover everything. We're not going to try to talk about everything in depth or just, hey, this happened. This is dumb. Moving on. Those kinds of things.
Well, with that, I did. I was browsing. I was browsing guitar.com this morning.
Oh, really?
And this headline came up. Joe Bonamassa believes Cheap Trick's Rick Nielsen is a bigger guitar geek than him. What he doesn't know isn't worth knowing, in reference to Rick Nielsen. I think that this is, and then he says there's tons of people that make me look like a hobbyist. I think this is true. I think there are probably people in this who follow this channel, probably follow your channel, that where this is true.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely
true.
Not to be outdone, and this is what I really wanted to get at. The quote in Classic Rock Magazine is, "Oh, look, there's tons of people that make me look like a hobbyist. I'll tell you the crazy anorak I've met, and it's Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick." Anorak, as an American, is such an esoteric insult.
Yeah.
I had to look it up, and I found out that an anorak is a specific kind of jacket. Is this going to change? Oh, good. I can change that. It's a kind of jacket used in polar regions, and apparently is a British insult for train spotters, because because train spotters will wear this kind of jackets while they are train spotting. And it's come to be known as dictionary. What is Oxford Languages definition?
Yeah.
Is a studious or obsessive person with unfashionable and largely solitary interests. But the comedy of it to me is that, oh yeah, this dude over here, he's a bigger anorak than I am, and it's like you chose the
Well,
anorakist word.
so here's the deal. Maybe, and I'm going to show my book nerdism here. Because it is also, it's just it can be used as a slang term for someone who's just obsessed with something. But here's the deal. Have you read Ready Player One or seen Ready Player One?
I have not. I've heard the movie.
So it's incredibly popular. The book was really, really popular. So in the book, a guy named James Halliday, which that name is also derived from something else that I can't remember right now. It's a reference to something. James Halliday creates this thing called, why can't I think of what it's called now? It's basically a VR world where basically everyone lives now, right? Well, his avatar's name in that VR world was Anorak.
Ah, okay.
So that word has sort of re-entered lexicon a little bit. And so I looked it up.
Oasis.
The Oasis, yes, that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, his avatar's name in the Oasis was Anorak.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. Joe, hi Joe, says, did he say that to try to get away with insulting someone in a way no one would notice? I think it's a way. It's when I mean, I think he intended that people would look it up, or maybe as Philip said, like that people would know it from the show. But it's kind of like, Sassy says it's a nerd insult. It's like, it's saying it's a very nerdy way of also calling someone a nerd. And that, I don't know, it's just funny to me. Because I had to look, like I said, because I had to look it up because
he's also referring to himself, which I think is interesting. He's not saying he's not one. He's just saying somebody's a bigger one.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't think he was intentionally throwing any shade. I think he's trying to. Right now, he's wearing the guitar nerd mantle. Like he's the reigning king of guitar nerddom. He literally calls his collection, his house where he houses his collection, Nerdville.
Right.
So it's like, I think he's, I don't know, maybe he's tired of being the only guitar nerd on the planet, or maybe he's tired of being talked to like he's the only guitar nerd on the planet.
No, that's fair. I think he was in Classic Rock magazine. I didn't even know that was a magazine.
I was about to say, can we talk about the fact that I didn't know that was a magazine?
He did also say that, and to his point, this channel has been a hater channel for Joe. I think reflectively we kind of jumped on the I don't know, the anger of it, the hotness of it.
Yeah.
He has apparently sold 9 million albums, which is about 8.99. No, actually, I don't know if I ever sold an album. I think I
only gave them away.
I think we only gave them away. I think the bands I was in, we just printed CDs and we would just give them to you.
I think I sold a grand total of 20 copies of a 4-song EP I recorded like 10, 15 years ago. It was very bad. It's not on Spotify for a reason. But but that still means he sold 8.999. I'm not going to do all the math out here.
Yeah, no, it's the point.
So he also sells out arenas, not really arenas, but big theaters, we'll call them.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. Is like, I don't hate Joe Bonamassa. I actually think he's pretty self-deprecating. If you ever listen to him in interviews,
right?
He doesn't take himself too seriously like everybody else does, but I'm also not a fan of his music. Then that's fine. And I am a blues guy, and I'm not a Bonamassa fan. It's just not my thing.
I think it's tricky when you have someone. So one thing he does really well is providing. Excuse me. He's really good at providing a Sorry, what in the world? Oh, okay, never mind. He does a really good job of providing like hot quotes that make good headlines.
Yes. I think he knows he's
Um,
doing it too.
yeah.
I don't think there's anything accidental in the way he says things.
Yeah. And I think that when you really dig into like the full interviews and you read, so when you read the hot take piece that's on, that's on one of these news sites, like guitar.com does this a little bit. Like guitar.com is building this article off of a article from Classic Rock Magazine. And even when you click Classic Rock Magazine on this link, it takes you to so Classic Rock Magazine is part of the loudersound.com family of
Oh, I gotcha.
things. So then there's that. I don't know if there's an audio portion that makes this longer. So it is a Q&A. I'm sure it's one of the things where, if you read through it all, there's some back and forth and whatever. And
the quote's totally out of context.
Yeah. And there are a lot of things in there that kind of like make him, like you said, like he's much more
Oh yeah, he doesn't take himself seriously.
What's the word?
Self-deprecating.
Like self-deprecating.
Oh yeah.
Apparently the first guest on his podcast was Paul Stanley.
Oh, okay.
Which I seems like an interesting choice, but he also says, a lot of times he gets on a guest, and this is actually really smart. He knows what he's doing. He says he gets his guests on Zoom. He has 5 or 6 bullet points, and then everything else is, it is what it is. You get what you get. And his example for that, I don't know if this is one that he has. I suppose it could be. Probably is. He says, you ask George Thorogood 2 good questions, and he will take care of the rest.
I mean, I'm sure that's true. I met George like feels like a million years ago. Didn't get a chance to ask him any questions though, so I can't validate that. But he's a nice guy.
Yeah. So it's you get into these, you read the full interviews, and you realize that like it's a one-liner, and it was a whole thing when he said like, oh yeah, you don't need pedals, or like pedal boards are dumb, or whatever.
Oh yeah. Anyone who uses pedals or something.
Yeah, and you read the whole thing, and what he's really, what he's saying is like, building out your pedal board is dumb when you can only play 3 chords or whatever. Which I agree with that, but then I can only play 3 chords, and
I mean, and obviously he doesn't hate pedals. He has signature pedals. He has Josh Smith playing with him on the road. You've seen Josh Smith's pedal board. Everybody has by now, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh
yeah, so I think it's just clickbaiting. That's all they want. They want you to click, just like everybody else. See, like you called this Sunday with Steve Q&A and more. You should have said Steve assassinates the entire gear industry, and that would have been way more clickbaity. People would have watched that video.
Yeah, and then they would have been like, he didn't assassinate anyone.
Right. Well,
this channel has now been taken down from YouTube permanently.
Oh yeah, that's true. Maybe assassinate's the worst word.
You got any news you want to hit?
I wanted to bring up which this is perfect to have these conversations with you, because neither of us really have a like new gear podcast, right? So I don't feel like we have any real risk of stepping on anybody's toes. Or like we're not going to talk about something y'all were going to talk about in a week or two.
Well, we're not. Well, famously, because Ryan and I only at this point, it's famous at this point. We've always only recorded every other week. So we had a segment for a while that was old news.
Yeah, that's right.
And sometimes we would do that on purpose, where we would be like something would happen on a Tuesday, and we'd be recording on Wednesday for release the following Monday, right?
Right.
And so whatever that Tuesday event is, if we talked about it that Monday, we would only be 6 days late. And we could this is a little peek behind the curtain. And so we could get it out like 6 days. You go like, okay, well, they're like, maybe that's still news, maybe it's not.
Right.
and we will sometimes intentionally take that and push it to 10 days out. No, sorry, 13 days out, just to make it old news by the time the episode drops.
Well, I tell you what,
So-
let me see if this will let me present a.
It should.
Let me see. Let me see if I can do it. I don't know how to. I've never done it in this browser, so that's the thing.
Just to make sure you don't have any tabs open that you don't want everyone to see.
Yeah, and like I have 4 million tabs open, but they're literally all my tabs I need open to make my show notes for next week's episode. Things we mentioned that I said I would put in the notes, and if I don't leave
Right.
the tabs open, I'll never see them again.
This is where you open a new window so that you have 2 instances of the same browser
Yep.
with 10 tabs open,
Man,
which is
that's-
also a thing I've done.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So we're going to minimize that, get that out of the way. This is me and technology. I've gotten so used to Riverside at this point that using StreamYard feels clunky.
StreamYard's a little funky, but that's what I know. So
Let's see. I think that's just going to share the entire screen, but we will see. Oh, look, it lets me pick the tab I'm sharing. That's beautiful.
yeah, I think that's a new feature.
Oh, good. Well, then we're going to share this. I think you have to approve it.
Oh, I do.
Look at that.
Add to stream. Here we go.
All right. So Boss revives the digital delay legend with the SDE 3000D. So there's an EVH available, that edition that's available, and it's more expensive.
Is it just a paint job?
So the EVH version, I want to talk about this whole idea. I'm going to try to find where they say what the difference is. If they say it in this article. Oh, EVH offers the same bells and whistles, but with some Eddie Van Halen touches. They give it the stripes. They also expand. They provide curated presets, and there's some extra IOs to do a wet, dry, wet.
Oh, interesting.
So that's the whole thing. So you got, it's $100 extra to get that wet, dry, wet, and the presets.
Yeah,
and
I have
some
to
stripe paint job.
I wonder how reliant on the I mean, they're probably pretty. I have to imagine they're fairly reliant on the extra ins and outs, because otherwise people would just wait for one person to buy it and then upload those presets to whatever, and that link starts going around. And
That's exactly what I was thinking. Those presets are only going to be proprietary to that unit for X number of days after it's released, right? But since the original only the non EVH version only has 2 outputs, where it sounds like the EVH one has 3, that kind of changes things a little bit. I guess if that's your thing and you need it, you'll pay that extra money. But for me, I this is not a delay for me. I'm not in that world. I like tape delays. But what I did want to talk about is the aesthetic. I realized with the 500 and the 200 units, they were leaning into it. But with this, that's not a 500 or a 200 unit.
Yeah,
They've gone with that bulky industrial flat top angled front case. It seems like Boss is really leaning into that for a lot of things that aren't anything that isn't their compact pedal.
yeah. No, I mean, you can see in the picture you got up there, that they're definitely leaning on that. So
I'm wondering, like, are we done with the micro pedal boom? Like, because I feel like fewer people are making micro pedals, and they're leaving that to the Affordaboard crew.
I think to some extent, maybe. But there's also, Boss has never done a micro pedal, right? So
No, not that I'm aware of. But I feel like they're not the only one. I see a lot of full size and bigger pedals now coming out.
right.
And I'm wondering if we're past that cram a pedal board with as many pedals as possible moment, because it feels like I don't see as many of those, like what I used to call the church board, as I used to.
I think we are personally. I think I've talked about this before, but I think we are. I think we've pushed back towards.
I can adjust it live. Oh, that's weird. The way it shares the screen. Sorry, I'm fascinated by this technology now.
I think I think we're in a moment where people, unless you're I think drive stacking is still kind of a thing, but maybe we're doing it a little differently. I think there's been some realization that you have a tube screamer. You don't need two tube screamers on your board unless you're using two different settings on the same song. You can just turn a knob ever so slightly, or the realization that like the difference between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock on a pedal isn't that big of a difference in live use, so just set it to 11 o'clock and call it good.
Yeah.
I think there's also some go back towards someone mentioned earlier. I do not know the answer to this question. But somebody asked, this was from S Gall. Have you guys ever run an El Cap into a Surfy Bear? The delays just disappear. Is my placement wrong? I don't know the answer to that. But
I sort of do. So when you're running that delay into a reverb and you're reverbing the delays, it's going to basically expand those delays to fill in all of the empty space that did exist between the delays. So you are essentially masking the delay entirely. You're just creating a washier reverb.
Right.
And I don't know, depending on your setting on the Surfy Bear, if doing it in reverse is going to help. The El Capistan does have reverb on board. What I would recommend is dialing in the reverb on the El Capistan, and when you turn on the El Capistan, turn off the Surfy Bear and use the reverb on the El Capistan. It'll help you get a little more definition between the notes.
There you go. I think so to this though, I think this is an example of simplification.
Yeah.
I think there's been some pushback of yeah, you can go the Afford-A-Board route. You can go with a bunch of single size pedals that do a bunch of things. But I think maybe it's some of it is post-COVID with some of the folks that were getting really into these Instagram boards. And I'm talking like maybe some of the more well-known folks that were doing Instagram boards, these giant, I call them Instagram boards, but like PT Pro size boards, or that are just packed to the gills, 20, 25 pedals on a board.
Yeah.
And now, they're doing fly gigs again and going like, well, I can only take 5 pedals. Like I need to fit a pedal board in a backpack or in a suitcase, and I don't want it to weigh 70 pounds. So I'm gonna have to get small again. I need a 20 pound setup that may or may not fit in a backpack. How do I do that? And it's to go back to 8 pedals, and that just gives them their core drive, distortion, tuner, a chorus, a delay, and a reverb, and like 2 or 3 other things.
I feel like part of it also came from, and I point to 2015, although that's an arbitrary year that it's just what I feel like it started, when like the real pedal explosion began. Like there were a lot of pedals, like say 2012 to 2015, but it feels like in 15 the world of pedals blew up and everybody wanted to try everything, and they threw everything on a board. So they got the biggest board they possibly could. And they wanted to have everything. And now I feel like that's cooling off.
Yeah. McFeedback 68 brings up Pigtronics. They are not Afford-A-Board. That's correct. And they do the micro format. There's a brand called
I mean, Wampler does some mini pedals too. They're still bringing out minis. So
there's a company called One Control that does some. I would say that they are not I don't know what the prices on One Control things are because I haven't looked at them in a long time. But I do know that they
I'm gonna stop the share since we are moving on a little bit.
But they are actually One Control builds like the official BJFE. Was that the company? I don't know if you remember them.
I don't.
Let's see if I can find this real quick. So this is a company, One Control. They've got a bunch of, this is all amp in a box
Okay.
type pedals, but they've got, this is the Honeybee. Yeah, this is a BJFE pedal. This is a $230 mini pedal.
Oh yeah, that's the thing is mini pedal doesn't mean cheap. It's just it's come to feel like it means cheap because that's the format that a lot of the Amazon sellers like.
Yeah, and again, this is a 20th anniversary of the BJFE Honeybee. Born Jewel BJFE. They were also were building under another pedal name. Oh, what was it? I don't remember what it was. But BJFE is one of these other like early, apparently they were founded in the year 2000. And they were kind of one of these early pedal companies, and they were building out of Sweden.
Eric Filsinger asked, "What's the price?" Eric, that delay is $499 for the regular version, $599 for the EVH version.
But yeah, there's definitely going to be continually be some sort of boutique-y, higher priced, better built mini pedals. Mr. Black is another company that I know.
Yeah,
I believe is still making mini pedals. It just works. But yeah, I think you might start to see a step back. Well, the biggest players I think are Pigtronics, of like that are mass. You can find everywhere. Pigtronics is one of them. Like you said before, MXR,
Wampler.
Eric brings up. He says that the price is nuts. Maybe I think the thing is that the SDE 3000 is a classic unit.
Yep. That's the thing. They're remaking a unit that everyone knows about, and a lot of people. They even remade their own version of it, and now it's discontinued, and now people want it, so they're just making it again with better tech, basically. I love how we ended up with 3 versions of the word there. And thank you, Sassy, for getting it there on the final try. My copy editing heart is very appreciative.
Mad Professor is the brand that I was trying to remember. Yeah. Mad Professor was building. So that was, I think Bjorn was designing and Mad Professor was building, but BJFE was the original company from what I understand.
Yeah. So let's see. You have anything next? While I'm hunting articles now.
Yeah, I identify with this one.
Okay.
I don't want to identify with this one. Chad Kroger says, I think there's been a softening on Nickelback hate. It's not like I'm listening to Nickelback now. I just don't care about them anymore.
Exactly. I don't have enough energy to hate them, but I still tell the jokes because I still think it's funny.
But where I actually want to go with this is I think there's been a he says they've received a ton of love on TikTok, which means a ton of people who didn't have to listen to How You Remind Me and Someday Back to Back now love Nickelback. It's one thing to know Photograph as a meme song. It's another thing to hear it at the top of the hour, every hour, 24 hours a day.
Well, that's the other thing. Nickelback is one of those bands that, we all hate on a little bit, but they've sold 50 million records and they still pack out stadiums. So somebody's listening to them.
Now I will say I saw a clip of their interview with Nardwuar and they just seem so normal there. And that's kind of refreshing for they are I'm going to use this term correctly for once. I feel like Nickelback is the pinnacle of butt rock. Folks can disagree. That's fine. But I think, kind of think they're the pinnacle of that.
Are they really? So let's take a second here.
Am I using it wrong still? I might be using it wrong.
I don't know, because I really am really the definition of the term butt rock is really obfuscated for me. What is, like, when you say it, I know what I immediately think of. The problem is I don't think of a band. I think of a person that would listen to it. And so I still have a hard time identifying, is Nickelback butt rock? Is that like the thing?
I mean, in my head, I don't know. That's what I was thinking, but because it's, it's this like late, these like late 90s, early 2000s hard rock, but maybe they're not hard rock enough. I don't know.
I'm going to regret Googling this. Let's see. Butt rock bands.
The Houston Press. Let's see. The Houston Press puts. Do they not list Nickelback as a butt rock band? They do not. Their number one butt rock band is Shinedown.
So I've also got so if you just Google it and trust Google's sources across the web, listen to this band list. I do see the Houston Press article. Puddle of Mud, Theory of a Dead Man, Hinder, Stained, Scorpions, Poison, Chevelle, and Berlin, Breaking Benjamin, Seether. I'm seeing the Hinder, Seether, Stained, Puddle of Mud thing.
Yeah.
3 Days Grace, Creed. Creed might be the OG butt rock band.
Yeah. Extrachill.com calls Nickelback the number one butt rock band, followed by Hinder and Puddle of Mud. So ENL points out, it's butt rock but that became the joke.
Yeah.
It was like, because it was these stations that were like, we play nothing but rock.
Right. Exactly. I found this Extra Chill. Hinder's number 2, Puddle of Mud, Stained, Seether, Saliva. Oh yeah, I forgot about Saliva. Shinedown, Daughtry, Papa Roach, Breaking Benjamin, Theory of a Dead Man, Hoobastank. There's one. Trapped, Fuel, and Finger 11.
Trapped is canceled.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this is funny to me. Dog Dick Dale. Nickelback isn't butt rock, it's shit rock. So I think that's kind of like, I think this is kind of where I don't want to talk about Nickelback as much as I want to talk about, I think some of this softening is it's a new audience that just wasn't there when it happened. They were 5 years old or whatever.
Yeah, I was 14 when Nickelback came out, and I'm old as hell now.
But the other part of it is that and this was kind of my thoughts on these When We Were Young festivals.
Yeah.
They did one that was all these like, most of the lineup that did the first one, people are like, oh, it's an emo festival. It's an emo festival. I'm like, yes. And then the next one is going to be like all pop punk. And so it's like Blink-182. I think it's headlined by like Blink-182 and Green Day. And it's this whole thing, and everyone's going, like, these festivals are selling out in minutes, and people that I knew in high school who, would not spend more than 12 seconds talking to me if I was the last person on earth, or are suddenly going to these festivals and whatever. And it's this thing where it's nostalgia, but then it also is like, wait, were you listening to this at the same time I was? Did we all go to the same, Jimmy World concert in 2003 at the San Diego Del Mar Fairgrounds? Or was it me? And I think the answer is it was me.
Oh yeah.
But I think that there's just this, I think there's this nostalgia thing that's like cured, where like all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I listened to that band when I was, 21 or whatever, or 19. And it's like, well, I listened to it too, but like no one wanted to talk to me about it. I thought I was the only one in my entire high school listening to, whatever. And
Well,
it's kind of the funny is how much softening there is for every uh genre over time, when you hit that like 15-20 year window, and all of a sudden it's a nostalgia act.
it's the same way we like shit gear from the 90s now, like the Bad Monkey. It's the same thing. But so here's the deal. And so we talked about this on, it's sad, I'm pretty sure we talked about Nickelback on my podcast with Hillary this week. Because I'm going through this, like, yeah, it's like hippie self-realization betterment thing, right?
Mhm.
And I'm doing it about trying to do it about everything in my life. But I'm starting with gear, and I'm starting with like things that aren't super like life changing, right? Like my
Right.
choice of overdrive pedal doesn't affect someone else's life, kind of thing. But we as a people tend to identify with the things we hate far more strongly than we identify with the things we love.
Mhm.
I keep talking about PRS guitars, how for the majority of my guitar playing life, I have hated PRS guitars. And I realized that had become an identity to me. Like I identify as the guy who hates PRS. And then I got a PRS that I liked. And I was like, I had to have this moment where I was like, okay, no, I get it. I get it. So I'm trying to focus on more about things I like and things I love than I do on things that I hate. And things like Nickelback kind of came up. Like it's fun to tell the jokes and to hate on
Mhm.
them, but it's really not doing by anybody any favors. Why hate on them? I can scroll harder. I can just move on past. So instead, I like to focus more on the things I listen to
I think
and like.
I think it's also a thing where, yeah, it's an energy expenditure. I think some of it, particularly with looking back at nostalgia, things that people are liking maybe more out of nostalgia, or a uh, Pitchfork does these like reviews
Oh
from
yeah, yeah.
time to time, these retrospective reviews.
Like, let's go back and did we really like that album,
Um,
or did we really hate that album?
and I think sometimes that's good, but I think it's also a thing where, yeah, like you said, like if I didn't like it then, maybe I like it now, and if I still don't like it, there's who cares?
Yeah, and if you still don't like it, that's more about you than the band usually.
But I mean, that's the entirety of social media. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? Uh,
Who exactly? That's why, people take again, it's the whole bringing it back to the Bonamassa thing. People take all of this too seriously.
yeah.
It's literally guitars and music. Like this isn't that serious. So, I don't know. It's a whole thing that
You got any take on this?
I was literally about to bring that one up. So here's I do have some takes on this. One, I'm glad Diamond's back. Two, I love that it's Solid Gold Effects that's doing it because I like Solid Gold Effects. Three, this is where I go back to like that whole shrinking of pedals.
Mhm.
I liked the bigger enclosures that they used to use.
Really?
So hold on. Let me see if I can grab one. Do I have a pedal that I can easily grab? So the original enclosures that they're in
Mhm.
are the same enclosure that a ton of pedal makers use. King of Tones in that enclosure. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of Wilson
Yeah.
effects in that enclosure. That is my favorite pedal enclosure.
It's the let me see. I think I can grab one
Okay.
real quick.
Well, I'll explain while you're off. It's my favorite pedal enclosure because you can fit 2-foot switches on it, especially for a dual foot switch pedal. It fits very cleanly on a pedal board. And I'll say this again for Steve. So Steve,
Just to be extra spammy, I grabbed my Get Offset mount
oh,
hood, but
nice.
which has a hair on it.
So That's
But I think
my
this is
favorite
the
enclosure.
enclosure, right? It's the 50. I think this is the 1590 BB.
Yes.
I could be wrong.
Thank you. I'm glad you got numbers and letters in there because I never get that right. But
It's 'cause I'm a
especially
dork.
for dual foot switch pedals, I love
Right.
that size enclosure. I think it makes everything easy to grab. You're not putting the switches too close to each other for my giant size 13 feet to, click a bunch of things. But also, like it is short enough and wide enough that on
Mhm.
like some of the more popular pedal train boards, they arrange very neatly on pedal boards. Some of the
Right.
different size boards. It's my favorite. It's my favorite enclosure. It's so I liked the older ones. So there's a part of me who's like, I want to go back and buy the older versions now that these are out. Hopefully they won't be astronomically expensive.
And actually, I'm looking at it. This size box would be what the Memory Lane Junior was in.
Yes.
The Memory Lane 2 and the Memory Lane Deluxe was in an even larger box.
Yeah, it was the triple foot switch
Yeah.
style. Yeah.
So it was probably about that long, and I don't know if I have anything. I think I might have something. Give me a second.
Okay. I don't think I have anything in that bigger enclosure that he's talking about, but I do like that Midge de Bruyne. It had that extra choppy foot switch on the tremolo. I think Diamond makes a great tremolo.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it might be this box.
Mhm.
This is a pedal from a company called SBN Pedals. I have very rarely used it because when I got it, it's super crackly pots. But then this is also a short box. This is actually, I think, the same. No, this isn't even the same as the old Tim box. So, like I said, I don't think this is the Memory Lane box.
No, that is not.
That
That's
one's
too
shorter
short.
and flatter.
Yeah, that one is getting close to the. If it were just a little narrower, it's like the almost like the what is it? Dead gum brain work. It's like the box for the Chula, the Chula by Love pedal, almost.
Oh,
How
okay.
thin and
Yeah.
sideways. I saw Eric. My name is Philip. I'm with 40 Watt Podcast. PV. Let's talk about PV for a second. So I'll give you my opinions on PV. I actually live right now about an hour and a half from Meridian, Mississippi, where PV was headquartered. There's still a building down there. PV, the problem for PV was once EVH moved on, PV had the rep still of being crap. And I'm not saying they weren't. What I'm saying is I think they made some pretty good stuff. I played a lot of PV growing up because that was everything you found in pawn shops here in Mississippi. And I still think some of those PV things are way better than anyone gives them credit for. And I'm not talking just the T40s and the T60s. I'm talking even the solid state amps. Some of the best sounds I've heard were people playing through old school Bandits.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a reputation for being cheap and not great, and people moved on. Now the nostalgia's coming back and around, just like we were talking about, how eventually everybody's like, oh, they would love the thing they used to maybe not like, come back around. But by this point, PV has had to shift all manufacturing overseas. They haven't really come out with any new products. They're not in the limelight. Hartley's 81. I mean, so he's not really doing much of the design anymore. I can't imagine. Yeah, Michael, I have a lot of friends who bought a lot of stuff at that PV auction when they shut down the American manufacturing facility. But yeah, that's essentially what happened. They didn't have the people buying anymore, so they had to consolidate and save money just to keep the company alive. And it sucks, but PV made cool stuff. They still make cool stuff, y'all. The 6505 is great. But it's not enough. They've got to figure something out, and supposedly they're throwing some supposedly they're throwing some stuff against the wall to make it fit. Yeah, Michael, it's not a PV, it's called the 10 years.
Well,
and
there's a few different.
Yeah, there's a few variations of it making that decade sound. There's Acorn Amps is making one.
Yeah,
Um,
that's actually the one that I thought of
Yeah.
immediately. It was the Acorn. They just call it the solid state amp
That's it.
slash preamp.
That's it. And then there was the 10 years by, I don't remember who makes that one. I don't know. I'd love to see PV return to form. I've been trying to I need to reach out to a couple more people. I want to do an interview with Hartley real bad. I've drank with Hartley before, but I've never interviewed him for anything. So I want to try to get him to do an interview, whether it's on camera or not. Maybe I have to write an old school article, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, certainly that undercover boss from a few
That was
years
so
ago
dumb. That was so bad.
didn't help things, but you know, it kind of just seems like they don't have a direction. They had I just saw this. They should make a small amp called the Pet PV. PV had like a decent showing at NAMM.
Yeah. This was the first time they've really had any showing at NAMM in a while.
I think some of my perspective on PV is, I don't know if skewed's not really the right word. PV right now reminds me of where Carvin was before they split Carvin and Kiesel. And maybe unfortunately, like Kiesel has done very well. And I don't know anything about Carvin now. Like
I thought Carvin was non-existent and it was just Kiesel.
Carvin is still selling like PA equipment. They're still selling the Steve Vai pedals.
Oh. That's interesting.
They're still giving me a pop-up that I have that where the X is on the other side of the screen, so I can't figure out how to close it. It doesn't look like they're making any amps currently, but they are making a cabinet. They're making one. No, that's that's technically an amp, but it's a pedal.
Okay. Justin V or Justin 5 says, I gigged a lot with a class. I had a classic 50 4x10, and that was still one of my favorite amps I've ever played. It did not quit. You could not kill it. Most of the Tolex was missing, or Tweed was missing by the time I finally retired it. Also, the JTM 60 is an absolutely monster amp that everybody sleeps on. I highly recommend the VTM, the VTM series, but the 120 is a monster. They're going for bigger money now, though. I'll be honest. They're getting harder and harder to find. They also had one I think was called the Butcher.
PV Butcher. Yep.
Yeah. Man, I saw one of those down in Orlando in the Guitar Center in their platinum room.
Yeah. There you go.
So, I'd love to see PV return, but coming back around to Diamond, I'm glad they're back. I think they were a great pedal company. I really can't understand how they went under to begin with. I think people slept on them, but that's the same thing. If you like a company, buy their stuff.
Yep.
That's the thing. If you like them, buy from them. And if you really like the company, pay the new price, because used it isn't helping them. That's just the way I look. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the sub. So that's where I feel about it, because we've got so many pedal companies right now, and I heard someone talk about on a podcast recently, or on a YouTube video, I don't know, talking about the actually, you know what, it was Phil McKnight on Friday. Michael, yes, the Butcher was called the Mississippi Marshall, although some people misattribute that title to some other PV amps like the VTM series, but yes, the Butcher was the Mississippi Marshall. It's basically a JCM 800, I think. But Phil McKnight was talking about it. He said, because everybody's talking about the market being down, and I've been that person too. Like, market's down. He's like, no, the market's not down. It's just back to 2019 numbers.
Right. Which I mean, you know, yeah, it's a graph.
Yeah,
It's 2019 we're still significantly higher than 2015.
exactly.
But when inflation and everything moves to 2022, 2023, and you go back to 2019, then everything looks horrific. Going back to PV and where I was kind of thinking about, they were showing some stuff at NAMM that I thought was pretty interesting. Their guitar amps include these, 6505, 6505 mini. They're coming out with new classic series stuff. The classic 20 mini is pretty
I
new.
played that one. That one was good.
They've got this. I don't really know what it's doing exactly, but they've got the Invective series, which is with Peripheries, Misha, Mansour.
I think the Invective was essentially, I think it's essentially a 6505 with some tweaks.
Well, it's got a lot of like digital hoobity-hoo going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lead channel's based on the 6505 and adds a bunch of, I'm not going to get super into it, but it adds a bunch of features, including, I think, some maybe XLR.
Right.
Yeah, and USB outputs. And so it's designed to be both your on-stage tube amp and a recording amp and all this other stuff all in one. I forget that PV owns Trace Elliott.
Yep.
I forget that they own, is it Crown?
Yeah, the PA company.
Yeah.
Yeah, they at one point they had Crest Audio.
Crest, maybe it's Crest I'm thinking of.
Yeah. They have Crest Audio, which was I don't know if they still are, was sort of a renowned PA company. They also at one time owned Buddha.
Right. With which for like they were doing the Buddha effects and stuff.
Yeah, so, and amps. I mean,
did Buddha have? Oh, Buddha had the one amp, right?
Well, they had multiple amps. I used to see guys come through them, and they were great. But I haven't tried any, PV era Buddha amps. So
it looks like they are still selling the Buddha Karma Chorus on their website.
Oh,
I don't know if that's a current production or if they're moving old stock, but they still have that.
Yeah. And they've still got the amps on the website as well. The Super Drive 2, Super Drive 30, 80, 45. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's things like this. I just don't. Okay. It actually lists down here. So PV is Trace Elliott Buddha Composite Acoustics, Media Matrix, which I don't know what that is, Crest Audio and Architectural Acoustics, and then of course PV.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think they're one of these brands that maybe they're doing okay in certain locations, but from a national, they've always kind of been like a second tier brand.
Yes, exactly.
I totally agree. Even at their peak, I always thought their partnership with EVH just seemed kind of weird.
Yeah.
Because but I recognize that maybe it was some like 80s legacy sort of thing. I don't know. I know there's the 6505s, well, back then the 5150s, and the Ultra, what was it, the Ultra 2, the Ultra Plus amps were like really popular in like the indie, they were kind of these discount mesas. I've thought about, there was an Ultra Plus head for sale locally.
Oh, really?
I tried to like talk myself into buying, but it would have been a garage amp, and my garage is still not cleaned out. So maybe I shouldn't buy. It was like $400 for a PV Ultra Plus head and a 4x12.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Well, the 4x12 is just being thrown in at that point, right?
Pretty
nobody can
much.
move a 4x12.
Pretty much, yeah. And it wasn't really clear from the ad if they were actually selling the head and the amp and the cab, or if they were just trying to sell one of them. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, I'm gonna
those
throw
are
this out
real
there.
popular in that scene. But
I'll tell you, there's one
otherwise-
that everybody, Steve, you need to know about this one, especially bassists need to know about it. And I say this as someone who's still not bought one and I keep looking at them on Reverb. So this is me risking that. I'm just gonna have to be faster on the draw. But Peavey made a preamp called the Max Bass preamp. That thing sells for like between $150 and $250 used on Reverb. It is a switchable tube or solid state preamp with a crossover, a blend, and an EQ on it. That's great. And they sell for dirt freaking cheap. And that thing is incredible. So people snatch those up the moment they list almost.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see any of them.
There's none
listed
because
right
they
now.
snap up as soon as it's on my Reverb watch list. As soon as one pops up and I have the money like in hand, I'm gonna buy one and have it around because it's a rack mount. It sounds great. But that's the thing. Peavey has these pieces, not the whole line, because some companies you can say everything they made is amazing.
Yeah.
Peavey has these things like the classic series amps. Or like one of my favorites, even though I think they're a little more fragile than they need to be, the Delta Blues amps. The 115 in particular had some of the best tremolo I've ever heard on that amp. But like the bass, that Max preamp, bass pre, it sounds incredible. So, but you can't build a whole brand on having a couple of lightning in a bottles and everything else is not great because it's going to ruin it's the reputation of the company is not what it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think it's tough too. And I don't know what you do about this. Like the current, I'm gonna cruise over to Fender.com.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what their current. They still make the Frontman.
Do they really?
That? Yep. They make two Frontman amps, and they both look like silver grill, black panel amps. The Frontman amp hasn't changed designs in like 30 years.
Yeah.
The Champion amps are another one where when the Champion amps basically haven't changed design significantly and pretty much further run. The Champ keeps going in and out. They always have the Fender logo has basically stayed the same, except for that stretch in like the early mid 2000s when they tried to be like a little more modern, and they still use this logo on the Bass Breaker stuff. I guess
I was about to say the Bass Breaker
square logo.
Yeah.
Fender, the Fender spaghetti logo has been very consistent, and I don't see that with a brand like Peavey, where I guess they kind of have stayed mostly with the they went back to like the metally, pointy logo, right?
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite logo that they do. This logo.
Yeah, that logo. You're wearing it.
Yeah. And it's not like this is a nostalgic hat. This isn't a hat I got in like the 90s. This is a hat that I got in the last couple of years. They're still using this all the time, and I love this logo. But I'll be honest, I'm at a point now where like a lot of gear doesn't excite me. Are you in that boat yet?
I mean, I think I've always been in that. I've been in that boat for a long time.
Yeah, I have these things I like. I think that's called getting old at this point. New stuff just doesn't seem that appealing to me anymore. I think I've just learned who I am. Phil Collins Hill, who the F are these guys? Hi, I'm Philip, 40 Watt Podcast. And he's over on this side.
That is a Phil Collins Hill. The name matches with the icon, so I'm here for this.
Oh, nice. And the other guy is, well, he's that way.
I'm Steve. I'm
60 cycle hum.
60 cycle Steve. I'm in
Or
30%.
super rich Steve.
Or super rich. Well, not today.
Not today.
Only when I'm burning houses to the ground. I've never burnt a house to the ground.
No, burning $100 bills. So, well, anything else you're seeing that's like?
I saw that Gibson added a Kirk Hammett Les Paul to its certified vintage collection.
Yeah, Sonny. Okay.
Apparently, does anyone actually know how much any of this stuff costs? The only thing I saw was a Gibson Modern for like 13 grand. But it sounds kind of like you have to. I don't know if they have the prices on their website. I think it's the thing where you have to. Well, what happens? Shop now.
Yep.
For ordering information, call us.
Oh, that doesn't help any. Well, I tell you what. Here's one that maybe we want to hit. Since we're on the back of your episode with Hillary, and I just had Hillary on the podcast. Representation in the music industry. This is how I piss off the comment section. So let's talk about this one, and you can actually decide not to if you want to, because you have the control of. Let me see.
We're gonna do it because I don't care.
Yeah. So this one.
Oh, I thought we were gonna do Taylor Swift fans put used contact lenses on sale for $10,000 because they had seen the Eras tour.
I can't even go there. I can't even go there. So, Gibson is a company that has gotten its rightful share of criticism for not being very inclusive and progressive and thinking of things like women and people of color in the industry. They've appointed Beth Hite as chief marketing officer.
She is taking because that was
Cesar's role, right?
Yeah.
Cesar's. That was his role. So she's being promoted to that role. I'm hoping that means that there will be some I don't know, more youth and marginalized group conscious marketing efforts in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for what it's worth, in 2021, she was promoted to vice president of cultural influence. So she's been there for a while. She's
been there for 5 years. She came in with the crew that took over when JC took over.
So it says she has been a thought partner, leader, and a key player in shaping and implementing our global strategy. What the hell does that mean? They have if Gibson has a global strategy, it's left hand, right hand. Doesn't know what they're doing.
Yep.
Kind of a situation.
Well, they do have an interesting program they never talk about. They have this like education program for young guitarists around the world. The problem is they don't talk about it. You've got to be on the Gibson newsletter to find out about it, which I'm on the Gibson newsletter. So I'd like to see them. What I don't want them to do is actually create some kind of inclusive marketing campaign and then talk about how we've created an inclusive marketing campaign. I want them to just do it.
Right. And in some ways, well, and so that's where I'm saying, like, in some ways that's almost, it's kind of like feels a little detrimental that they operate that way. She's actually been at Gibson for 7 years.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. No,
so she actually came in 2016. So apparently she's based in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Before then, I'm looking at other places that she's worked. Thanks, LinkedIn. No, I don't know what this means for Gibson because what in the world? Joe says Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm for a signature guitar announcement video was being in the kitchen and being homemaker.
I did not see the announcement video.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it's tongue in cheek, but yeah, it's especially because Lizzie Hale's image is as 100% the opposite of that. But Yeah, I kind of am in the same boat. Like, what are the changes going to look like?
Right.
And you're to your point, Philip. I think there are so many eyes on Gibson that when the changes happen, they won't need to talk about it because
People will notice. They'll
people will notice
absolutely
right
see it.
away. You
Yeah.
know, when
That's what my hope is.
when they sign when they release the Billie Eilish Les Paul, everyone will know. They won't need to announce it.
Yeah, although I don't know that Billie Eilish is going to play a Les Paul, but
no, I'm
yeah.
just
But that's the
just
thing is
joking.
there's got to be an effort on younger, more diverse signature artists. We got to see it more in their marketing campaign, and just need to see it. Don't need to talk about it. Just do the thing. I think promoting someone to COO who's a woman is a step in the right direction, but I need to see it produce results too.
Going back, this is a thing that I've harped on a few times on the channel. Recently, McFeedback68 says, "Here's a strategy, Gibson: build guitars that are reflected by their price." I'm not, we did the episode. Ryan and I did an episode. Was it 2.5? I think 2-3 weeks ago, where we talked about what basically this was when the Caesar being the new president and interim CEO was announced.
Right.
Is if you were president and CEO of Gibson, what would you do? And the thing that we kind of put out there was, put the name out there, put the lower price product out there. My thing with Gibson has been that we kind of forget that the faded stuff exists. We tend to forget that the studio
tribute,
series
like
exists,
I was
tributes.
yelling at the screen during that part of during at the radio. I'm like, the tribute series is the entry level. It's the it's the lowest level of the American made Gibson stuff, and it's still pretty freaking good. You don't have to buy. Everybody thinks of like the Les Paul standard as like, and compares it against the lowest end American made Fender. That's not where this is.
The Les Paul tribute it's a satin finish, which is not, I'm kind of on the fence about satin finish for that, but it's whatever. It's like you said, it's designed to be entry level. It's $1,300. In fact, it looks like the whole Les Paul tribute series is $1,300, which again, that's my whole thing, is that at $1,300 it is the let's see, Fender Player Plus. I spelled it wrong. Let's see if it will still work. Will Sweetwater interpret?
Is 1,100 and up.
They're 1,100, right? The Strats are also 1,100. The basses are 1,200.
Yep.
So that's a comparable price. 1,100 versus, I mean, it's relatively comparable. 1,100 versus 1,300.
Relatively.
And one of them is,
well, you're also comparing a set neck guitar versus a bolt neck guitar, and
a made in Mexico guitar versus a made in America guitar.
Right, exactly.
That's my bigger thing is so you can buy an American Gibson. Teal Static says, I believe the tributes come with Alnico 2s. I've got the thing open right now. Let's see how fast I can read.
Yeah, because while you're reading real quick, that's my thing, is you got to compare apples to apples.
Yeah, they're a pair of 490s, which is not my favorite, but that's what I would expect to be on this. Would be, and it's plecked. The setups should be really good.
Yeah,
I have not played one. I also made a note recently that there is a Guitar Center like 20 minutes for me that I have not been to since I moved. I probably need to
go check it out.
Find a day to just head down there and just play some things, and
also
see if I can see if I can maybe at least take some photos, if not stealth record.
Yeah.
Though I don't think anyone wants to hear me play guitar, so maybe I shouldn't stealth record.
Well, my deal with the whole Gibson, everybody's like, oh, well, the quality control, y'all, the quality control is good. Like people who are still pushing that rhetoric are people that haven't tried Gibsons in a while, or just always they just hate Gibson and they want to have a point to say. Which is fine. Hate the things you hate. I'm a little more interested in positives. But
the Vapor says good luck from getting help from Guitar Center employees. I don't want help.
Yeah.
That's
I found Guitar Centers are very site dependent on how good the help is.
yeah. I don't know
the
how
one
the
in
one is
Jackson,
here.
Mississippi, I'll be honest, depending on who's there that day, I think they are pretty freaking good. They tend to take care of you and deal with the things. They used to have I say used to because I haven't seen them the last few times I've been in. They used to have a really, really good tech, really talented tech. Which is I realize that is like the unicorn in Guitar Center.
Yeah.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you, sir?
Oh, it's Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Yeah, same, Joe. The only time I ever really get to Guitar Center for help, though, is when I need them to get a pedal out of the case or get something from the top shelf, the top rack, whatever. So,
yeah, I just I don't know. It's yeah, I think we're far enough into this new ownership era that it's worth revisiting things.
and yeah, and rethinking the your opinions from 7 years ago.
Yeah, and
Because
I think, and for what it's worth, I don't like Fender QC's been
that's
great the
that's
last few
exactly what
years,
I was going to
right?
say. Fender QC's been kind of trash these last couple of
So,
years.
I need to go in and to build off of this, the Les Paul tribute, and the flip side of it, and I mentioned this as well, is there are some higher end Epiphone. I think the Prophecy series, there's a bunch of Epiphones kind of in this like $800 to $1,000 or $700 to $1,000 line that I don't know if they're good or bad. I don't know. It's like when the Player Plus came out or the Player series came out, everyone goes, okay, well, that's just renaming what used to be the Fender Standard Stratocaster.
Right.
The Player Plus is effectively, I guess, kind of this old Standard Deluxe or the Deluxe series.
Well, I will tell you,
And
I
Fender,
owned an
Fender
Epiphone
Blitz,
Firebird, by
right?
the way. The Epiphones are stellar.
Oh yeah.
I gigged that thing. It was great.
So it seems like to me there's opportunities that for whatever reason do they not want to do, like, I don't even know what kind of marketing they do. What kind of marketing does Gibson? I have no idea. I just don't know the answer.
They don't really do a lot because they honestly I feel like that's the other problem. They're in that we're too big to need to market category or think.
Yeah.
I won't say they think they are. They are. They're big enough they don't have to market, but I feel like if you want new customers from different demographics, you have to market. Is that that makes sense? They're not hurting in sales. Sense. They're not hurting in sales.
For sure.
They're selling everything they want to sell.
Yeah. Joe says non-existing, and they don't send things to demo artists other than huge channels. I don't even know if
they don't send to huge channels. They don't
huge channels.
Like there's they have and I've talked to a few people who have worked with Gibson and have wanted to work with Gibson. They at best they can do is loaners. They don't send anything on like a hey, demo this, you can keep the gear kind of thing. They don't do any of that. So I mean, there's a couple, like a handful of channels. I know Robert Baker has some kind of deal with them. He must, because he's constantly getting Epiphones and occasional Gibsons in. But for the most part, they don't send to huge channels either.
Yeah. Yeah. I can say I think Ryan's mentioned this, so I'll just say it, and if people want to, hopefully I'm not pulling the curtain back too far. Okay, yeah, Ryan says Gibson doesn't work with channels, and to that point, there are brands, I'll just put it this way, that there are brands that we have worked with or that we've talked with, or if they put something out that's interesting enough, we will reach out to Sweetwater and say, hey, this product is really cool. Oh, Ryan actually brought it up. Robert Baker's, he says, I'm pretty sure Robert Baker's deal is with Sweetwater. It feels
that
weird
makes
because
sense.
I feel like I'm and grabbing quotes from the account that I'm streaming from, but it's not me.
Yeah.
But this is a thing that we do as well. It's like if there's a company that that puts out a product that Ryan's interested in demoing, then and we don't have any contact with them, we reach out to Sweetwater and see if we can do something with them. But there are brands, and Gibson's just not really in the overall in the vein of what we've done historically, that style of guitar. But there's also something to be said for active avoidance of certain brands. And I don't want to say that we actively avoid Gibson, but they're certainly like not a brand that we actively pay attention to.
Sure. And I find that a lot. And and I've had this conversation with different folks. Y'all have at least a lot of your following is in that California music scene vein. There's a lot of pop punk folks who subscribe to your channel and are y'all's audience, and that makes sense. There's a lot of folks obviously in the surf vein. Neither one of those things are Gibson. Like I realize there's a couple of signature editions for some folks. Like I think Tom DeLonge had a signature Gibson at one point, but those folks aren't generally going to be into Gibson. But here I am. I'm over here in the South where blues and Americana and rock and roll rule the roost, and Gibson's a big deal down here. Like it's still a massive deal. And so I think there's still some regional musical influences there. And I realize I'm the blues guy, the blues, Americana roots guy who hangs out with all the pop punk guys. And I'm usually the outlier here, but that's okay. I get it. But it also is a little frustrating when I just see hate all the time towards, and some of it earned, some of it actively earned. I'm looking at you, Mark Agnesi, in that hostage situation video.
Yeah, where was the Michael Krause's? So Mick Feedback says you forgot Mark. Michael Krause says, I feel like someone off camera was pointing a gun at Mark for that Play Authentic video. At the time we were a lot smaller, but the day that video dropped, and it's probably the only time that I can recall where that video dropped, and it was so atrocious that I took a little bit, like I basically spent my lunch break watching it over and over again in order to write my own parody version of that. And then I hit up Ryan. I was like, dude, we have to film this. Can we film this today or tomorrow? And I went over to his house after work and was like, dude, like I already got it all laid out. I already wrote a script. I printed it. We like taped it to the camera and we just broke it out, and it didn't, I think we were just probably too small at the time for it to really like take off. But let me see if I could
there's obviously some missteps there, but I think a lot of the moves post JC coming in has done a lot to repair the brand. Hence him leaving. I mean, he came in and fixed Levi's and then left. That's what a recovery CEO does. That's what he was brought in for, was not his ability to long-term run a company, but he's a turnaround CEO.
Yeah.
And so I think he left it better than he found it, which is great. Now is when we need to see the active progressive steps, now that they've got themselves back on solid ground.
And from a corporate standpoint, I think that's a really good point that we probably all collectively lose sight of, is that companies do stuff like that. My company, I worked for a company that did that, where when the guy who was the CEO left, he said, look, I'm a scientist and an engineer. I've taken the company to, we had one commercial product. We were trying to get other commercial products. And he basically said, like, the commercial's not my specialty. I'm a scientist and engineer. And so they switched to a CEO who's still there. That was more of a commercial business sided oriented CEO. Man, I need to get a light because I really don't like what this
I got you.
Window's doing.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's like finding the right person for the right role, and that's exactly what's happening at Gibson. They brought
Yeah.
JC to do what he did, and now you're handing it over to someone to take it more long term is what it feels like to me. I think of it like there's a guy I used to listen to his podcast, and I may still be subscribed to it. Maybe he just hasn't done anything in a while. But I can't think of his name. But he's a music business podcaster, and he used to manage Taylor Swift. And he gets a ton of questions about his time managing Taylor. He said, so here's the deal. He's like, I managed Taylor during these years, and said, and what happened is she got to a level of fame and a level of booking and a level of management needed. He said that was not what I was good at. So we parted ways because everybody's like, oh, there was a falling out. He's like, no, we're still friends.
Yeah.
But he's like, you've gotten to this point. I can't manage you past this point. You need someone who can do this thing.
Yeah. And I think that's smart on both sides. You don't wait. They always say like, oh, you rise to your, what's that? They try to say this for like presidents, like, oh, you rise to your level of like greatest incompetency or something. Like basically you just keep getting promoted until you were successful here, so we're going to keep promoting you until you fail, basically.
Oh, you rise to your level of incompetence.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I think there's some misunderstanding of what that is, but it's also a thing where it's like, well, maybe, we should value people for being good at what they're good at. That's my whole thing is people in my current job, I work with some people who are a little like title crazy, and I realized that with promotion comes what's the my brain is breaking, comes pay increases, right? So you want that promotion because promotion seen as like, well, if I get this promotion, if I just get a pay raise, I'm going to get like 5%, but if I get a promotion, I'm going to get 10%. Right. And my thought is like, hey, why would you want to promote me out of a job I'm good at? You should just give me more money.
Yeah.
But most companies don't do that. Maybe they should. I'm going to drop the streaming link in the chat. I mentioned this earlier. I want to do quick stuff. So we'll bring you on. Say if you got something to say it, and then we're gonna, maybe if it's a question, if it's a show and tell, we'll reply to it, and then we're gonna bounce you out. Oh, looks like you got some show and tell. Is that's a Les Paul Jr.? Is that a BJA, or is this just its own? Just a
plain old Les Paul Jr.
Plain old Les Paul Jr. And maybe no one jumps in the live stream. I don't know. There's 45 people watching.
Nice.
Apparently.
We could totally do our own show and tell. Just grab something off your wall, Steve.
I want to grab. I've been trying to sell this for a while.
Oh yeah. I had a feeling this is where you were going.
This is a Gibson EB14. There's been some questions of if I should just put it on reverb, and the problem is I was going to sell this with a soft case. Don't super want to deal with shipping.
Shipping's not hard with a soft case. I've done it a bunch, and you could do it.
But I did get an offer last night, but it was for a Trace Elliott head and cap.
No.
And I was just like, I also just like, I would be willing to trade, I think, for another guitar or bass that, like, if I got an offer of a like American Stratocaster or an American like jazz bass, I'd probably make that happen.
Yeah.
Because I think I could sell that faster than I could sell this.
Mm-hmm.
But my goal is to cash out I should
Okay.
probably find one of these guys that's selling like $1,500 in pedals as a single pedal board and just offer the bass as trade.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I actually think those are cool bases, but they don't get a lot of looks because they're basically Gibson's attempt to be a Music Man Fender bass.
Yeah, no, they're great. It's dual push dual push pull.
Yeah.
So volume, tone, and so it's basically a jazz bass setup with a pull, so you could split it. So they work. I really like the bass.
Yeah.
I just I've got the Squire here,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've got the Italia and a PVT20, and those are basses I just from like a me sense. Those are more me instruments. But that's also why I'm not like in a hurry to sell this. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong in it. Like I said, it plays great. It sounds good. It's
Yep.
not like in my aesthetic, and I don't know owning. If I'm gonna own 4 basses, I don't know if I want this to be my 4th one. I think
Gotcha. Teal Static, it's a 34-inch scale.
yeah, this is a full scale Gibson bass. Where was it? I saw this question. Mylogify, is that Mylogify? I don't know how to pronounce that. I can barely speak English.
Malog iffy.
Mylogify. Ryan, I think, yeah, Mark MJD answered this kind of already. Ryan has a black Les Paul Studio.
Yeah, I have a bunch of Gibsons, obviously. I have one less. I did ship one out yesterday as a trade. So that'll be interesting. I'll get that guitar in this week that I've traded for. But yeah, I have only have 2 basses. I have the Highway 1 P bass, and I have the same one you have, the late 60s jazz bass. I think that's what that is. Yeah.
Michael Kraus says Ryan has an SG, but I thought had an SG. I'm pretty sure he sold it. I know he sold a bunch of stuff, but I don't remember what.
I think he ended up trading it, didn't he? That's what he traded for, the black Les Paul.
No, I think I don't remember.
So that's the bass you have.
Yep.
I have been thinking about selling this one because I end up never playing it. I still just play a P bass.
Oh, okay. Where is it? Teal Static says, my first live. Are these always on Sundays? I tend to stream on Sundays because it works with my work schedule. I also might switch to other days because it is like, this is a morning where I could be picking up donuts and doing, a family morning. But I woke up, I set an alarm, and then I woke up ahead of my alarm this morning. And so I just got up.
I did
we
the
had
same
talked
thing.
about doing this. So I like doing Sunday mornings, but I also recognize that like for West Coast, 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. is not the easiest. This is more, but some of this too, honestly, is I know when Ryan live streams here sporadically, he tends to live stream at like 4 p.m.
like Friday afternoon, 4 p.m.
Yeah, which is like brutal for one. I always tell him, I go, dude, you're trying to live stream against Phil McKnight, so
right.
Good luck with that. But I also think that like I kind of like doing these morning ones because I want to try to bring in the European viewers. I don't know if that's a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. I don't know if it's effective. But yeah, so that's kind of why. But also, again, the mornings, my family tends to sleep in, and so this just works for me.
Hey, Steve, please highlight that one. RC, that is a one-way trip to being featured on a 60 cycle hung episode when that bass is inevitably sold. That's what that is. That's a one-way trip, sir. Please don't do that.
It would look cool if done right. But the problem is it's really hard to do right.
Steve, I already want credit. I don't care who actually sends it in. I want credit for whoever sends in this ad because I'm submitting it now preemptively
Oh
when
my
it
gosh.
gets sold with all the holes in it.
What I would say is if that's a route you want to go, the Meteora has a lot of pick guard.
Oh, route. I see what you did there.
Oh, I didn't do that on purpose. I'm not that sharp. But yeah, it's I don't know.
What you actually need. Hold on, I'm gonna find one. I'm gonna find a photo of one. No. You need one
Hi
of
Benny.
you need one of these.
What are we looking at?
I will share this screen. Present. Right here.
Oh yeah, these Ampegs.
Yeah, the Ampegs with the holes all the way through them.
Yeah.
And the scroll headstock. There. Okay. RC, if you do this, I'm on. I'm totally in. You route the Meteora like this, and you replace the headstock with a scroll headstock, I'm in.
I can't. But if it's a Meteora, did he say Meteora base? Just
I'm
said
assuming.
Meteora. Is there a scroll? I know there is a scroll guitar headstock.
Let's see. Oh, good. I can change tabs. Impact scroll headstock guitar. Let's see if there was a guitar variation of this. I don't. I didn't initially find one, but oh my gosh, I have to share this now that I found this abomination. Stop. Now we're gonna do this one now. Oh, this one.
Burns used a scroll headstock on their guitars.
Look at this abomination.
Good grief!
It's a little phallic.
Now that you mention it,
Yeah.
Is this modded? Is this an actual shape?
This is apparently an actual shape. Look at that neck plate. 2 screws.
Yeah. Well,
how's that work?
If it's the right 2 screws.
Oh, it's fretless too. Look at that. WTCITS.
What?
I can't tell you what that means on air. You can look it up later. Yeah, I can't get your channel canceled. This is an Ampeg AUSB1 serial number 788. They want $10,000 for this. Oh, okay. I'm done because I've taken away what could have been a submission to the episode now. So
how is this real?
That's what I'm wondering, man. How is this a thing?
These were called the ASB1 and the AUSB1 were so that the ASB1 is fretted, the AUSB is fretless, and apparently they were nicknamed the devil bass or the longhorn bass because of the outward curving horns.
That's not what I'd have named it.
And they were made randomly from late 66 through late 67. And apparently the quality of them is just all over the map.
Yeah, you think?
So depending on the batch, it sounds like some of them are good and some of them are not great. At least one of them was made with an asymmetrical body. So it has that one is like a longhorn version.
Yeah.
But only on one side.
Anyway, that's a whole experience and a half. So yeah, I don't recommend it, RC. But you know what? You do you. It's you. It's your bass or guitar. I can't remember now.
Yeah, you got it. It's yours. You got to play it. So
Yeah, you're the one's got to play the thing. So do what you feel like you need to do to it. Paul Ewing says having everything only works until you find you end up using what fits your gig. I'm adding some editing there. Original music gig or bedroom. Yeah. Having everything sounds like a lot of fun. I have, a lot of junk. It's not junk, but I have a lot of stuff. And ultimately I end up reaching for like 3 or 4 guitars at most. So
Yep. Which probably means I shouldn't, like, I used that Gibson for so long that maybe I shouldn't sell it.
Yeah, I mean, if
it
you
was like
if
my
you
go-to,
use it,
but
do you have another humbucker bass?
no.
Whoa,
Well,
man.
I mean, the Italia has a mudbucker in the neck, but it's a very different.
Michael Krause, it's not quite the same. Bless your heart is you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You do you is you may test that assumption at your earliest convenience. It's got some it's got some F around and find out energy.
Yeah. Bless your heart is extremely condescending.
Yes.
You do you is good luck with that.
There you go. That's a good way of looking at it. And at your own peril, yes.
Coyote Stardust wants to know over 20 guitars behind you. How many of them? Apparently, he's counting the guitars behind you.
There's 15 behind me.
Okay, well, I've got 8 behind me, I think.
There's 15, and I have played all but 1 of them in the last month.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I've been doing so that I just can't stop shilling for pickup music. But I've been doing the pickup music lessons, and I have been doing them all on my Stratocaster.
Nice.
It's my best playing. It's my best setup guitar. The jack staying actually might be comparably set up because it's a smaller, shorter scale. I don't know if it's better set up or if it's just slinkier. I see.
Yeah, he thought yeah,
there would have been another 5 guitars where that amp is.
Right.
But the Strat, because the lessons I'm doing have me going basically from first position up to an octave above. I really need like really good fret access to do or not fret access, but really good action in order to like do the chord shapes at an octave up at the 12 to
that
fret.
makes sense.
So it's really hard to do on, even though like my other guitars, I'm like, oh, this is set up really well, and the action's like good enough for lead work above the 9th fret. It's tougher for chording.
Sure, that makes sense. For me, it's like I do have a lot of guitars, but some of them I have, and like, I mean, I've said this on the podcast, but for those of you who haven't listened to the podcast, like in my heaviest gigging time, in the like, I don't know, 7 years or so that I made a living playing guitar, not a good living, I should mind you, not a good living. I just made, barely making rent and eating ramen noodles, kind of thing. I owned 2 guitars and 1 amp, and that's all I had. It's only in not gigging that I had the time to start looking at other guitars and buying other crap, working full time, making adult money, and not having, too many responsibilities. But some of these I've had for a long time. Some of them are not worth selling, if that makes sense. Like I've got a couple over here. This one, I've shown it literally on this channel before. It's like I think it's an old Gretsch prototype, but there's no way to prove that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's not worth anything. I've got a Premier Multivox over here, a little 3/4 scale. There it is. Guitar. That's Premier Multivox that a local guy rebuilt entirely and put a new pickup on, and I found it for sale in our local shop for $300. So I was like, yep, I'll buy that. So it's not like, not everything back here is a, reissue Les Paul.
That's not just 15 Novos back there.
No, there's only 2 Novos back there. There's two.
Yeah, so I mean, I can say for the pedal stuff, I basically buy pedals with the money that comes in through this channel,
Mhm.
through Patreon, through the podcast sponsorships. This Telecaster has been my Telecaster for like probably 15-ish years now.
Yeah.
This was originally a bunch of parts that I traded. I traded a Ashdown 2x10 for a bunch of Telecaster parts. That's a Big Baby Taylor that I bought for my wife for like her birthday or something when we were dating. This bass, the PV bass, was a trade, which I actually did through the channel. I traded my Yamaha bass for that bass. Basically, I said that I was looking for a PVT20, I think I said I was looking for it, and I was thinking about selling my Yamaha bass at the time, and somebody reached out and said, I have a PVT20, but I still need a bass to record with at home. So if you want to trade one of your basses for this one, and so we made that work. Jag Stang was my first electric guitar, Teal Static. It's a T20. It's the slant pickup model. The Italia was a gift from Big Ear Pedals.
Grant, yeah. Grant and Karen.
The Squire J I bought when they were on sale. On sale. The Strat I mentioned earlier. Let me grab that real quick. I've shown it on here before.
I love that Steve's microphone is attached to his headphones, so like it also goes away when he takes his headphones off. Hi, Amanda. So he still can't hear me. So
I actually grabbed both. Well, what's up?
I agree that Milo Giffey is correct. You do look like a Telecaster person. You need a nice Telecaster.
Yeah, I've thought about. I don't know what a nice Telecaster looks like for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned this story on the show a few times that the last time I went to Guitar Center like 10 years ago, the last time I tested this idea out was 10 years ago. It's not the last time I stepped foot in a Guitar Center.
I'm about to say, man, you really do need to go by that Guitar Center that's near you.
Playing a bunch of Telecasters in there, and the one that if I was like, I'm going to spend money today, the one I would have spent money on was a Classic 5 out of like 5, including like at least one USA Telecaster. But that was a while ago. So I've got two guitars here. I'll show real quick. This one y'all have seen before this is a MIJ Strat. This was when they were putting the Schaller, this Fender System 1 trims in them.
Oh yeah.
So I found out recently, I always called this a contemporary standard.
Okay.
I read something recently that basically from in this era, all of the standard Stratocasters were equipped with these trims. So it's actually maybe not proper to call it a contemporary standard. It would just be a standard.
Oh.
For that time. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's why this has two giant holes here and here, because those are designed for a 2 peg. I bought this in college. I ditched class to buy this guitar because it was on sale for $100 on Craigslist. So nice. This is a, it's a 12-inch neck, super flat frets, because that was the Japanese thing, is super flat frets, super fast neck. And then this other guitar I pulled out, which could have talked about earlier, I guess, maybe, this is a PV Generation.
Yeah, I had a couple of those over the years. I think
they made these like from like around 1988, 1989. With this has been sanded off, so it's not going to come through on camera, but this did have the Cursive PV logo and Cursive Generation series, but this is a USA. It could use a little tightening on the action. It took me a while. I had to like redo the electronics in it. I actually want to put eventually I have a Gun Street Telecaster kit that I want to
Oh,
throw
yeah.
in here. Probably keep the pickups the same, but just do a full electronic swap. The Gun Street kit I have for this one. Originally Sean from Gun Street sent me 2 Telecaster kits. One was a push pull for series switching. And then this one, the other one is for phase, in and out of phase. So I'm going to put the in and out of phase on this one.
Oh, I got you.
But I need to get that done. I did not sand the logo. And in fact, I actually think this entire neck was sanded, which is kind of a bummer because I don't think these were satin finishes. These were
no, that should be a pretty nasty gloss, I believe.
But I like the sanded finish on the back of the neck. I just wish they wouldn't have done it on the front. But I got this for $0.
Well, you can't complain about that then.
It was missing the springs for the pickup, so I had to hunt down some springs or some. I think I may have ended up using the Fender gasket, whatever's. And I had to hunt down this saddle here, so that's why this saddle and screw, they don't match the rest. And the guy made me promise that I would never sell this guitar. I would only pay it forward.
Okay.
So yeah, that's that. What do we got? What do we got here? Oh, so, these are the later ones.
Yeah,
$600.
Yeah, dude. Later one. Look what they're going for.
That's gross.
Yeah, I can't guarantee this is the lowest price on Reverb because I didn't search that hard, but I was going to show so people can see. There's that cursive logo.
There's one in. So this is different.
Oh, is that a different logo?
Yeah. So let me see if I can find. I shouldn't say it's actually. Yeah. My brain is breaking a lot today. Let me see if I can find the one that I have. This is one of these things where they like reuse the name so many times over the years that yeah, that's what it is. So this is actually what that logo would look like if it was intact. I don't think this was a color matching headstock.
Yeah. And McFeedback, it is Gold Mist. It's just called Gold Mist. I know the finish you're talking about.
And yeah, this is listed for $580 and this is the humbucker version, but this is listed for $580 on Reverb. And the difference between this and what you showed before, the EXP, is these are made in the USA.
Oh, I got you.
I think mine might actually be a Series 1, which I'm not, but I'm not seeing any of the Series 1. I'm not sure what the difference was.
Me either.
But the EXPs are made in China, I think, or one of their overweights overseas locations. I'm not totally sure.
Oh, here you go. Here you go. I got you, Steve. This one sold a year ago for $700.
Yep. Now, I will say, when I got this guitar for free, they were like a maybe $200 guitar.
Right. There's the logo for everybody.
And you can see how shiny it's supposed to be.
Yeah. It's definitely supposed to have some gloss to that finish. Oh, man, they made some weird stuff. They made some weird stuff, dude. I paid good money for a one of the Generation EXPs that had like single humbucker and a piezo in, so I could do acoustic stuff because I was leading worship at the time and I needed something that did everything. And what would be the PV early 2000s version of the Acoustasonic, basically.
Right.
And it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible guitar.
Deja Voodoo says first gens were Korean. I'm not sure. That was like the later ones. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I
this
can't
one,
see it anymore, but I'm pretty sure this has a USA, or at
Ye-
least would have a USA stamp on the back.
and
if
this
it
one
wasn't
does
rubbed
handcrafted
out.
USA, patent pending. It's the EXPs that were overseas made.
Yeah. Oh, or maybe he's saying the first generation of EXPs were Korean.
Oh, that's possible. That is
maybe
possible.
maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Because
Um,
the EXP I had was definitely Korean made.
yeah.
And we're talking Korean before Korean production ramped up to what it is today.
Yeah. Probably so more like early mid Samick era.
Yep.
Which eventually, like, everything comes in waves.
Yeah.
We're kind of about to hit the 2-hour mark. I usually keep these right at 2 hours.
Yep.
So I'll just wrap up, I guess, with this. People coming in. But we've been in these cycles we've seen these production cycles over the years. And I'll throw this comment up because this is in line with where I'm going. Think back to like Japanese guitars in the 60s, early 70s, kind of all over the place. By the early mid 70s, they're getting better. By the 80s, the legend of it was that Fender Japan was making better guitars in 1983, 1984, 1985 than Fender USA was. That's only sort of true because Fender didn't have a factory I think it was 1985. They didn't have a factory. They only had a custom shop because the factory burned down. That's when they moved. I think that's when they moved from Fullerton to Corona. So there was no American factory for like a full year.
Yep, that's right.
So for that year, Fender Japan was making better guitars than Fender USA because Fender USA wasn't making guitars. But even before then, like there's a whole thing where I think they sent a 57 Strat, a 62 Strat, and like a 72 Telecaster to the Japanese factory. It said, "This is what we want to you to model from." And the legend is that the Japanese engineers like figured it out right away. Whereas in 1983, Fender was making stuff like the Fender Elite series. They were making that Dan Smith era stuff that was just kind of weird. Now, of course, if something is a Japanese made guitar, we expect it to be very high quality.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we've seen this cycle with Korea. When Squire was originally built in Japan, we said, well, it's Squire, so it sucks. But now Squire Japan is actually like a $700 guitar. If you want to try to hunt those down, these guitars that you would have been less than $200 20 years ago. Korea, as they moved, Squire, a lot of other brands moved from Japan to Korea in the 80s. That early Korean stuff is real hit or miss. I always think the Squire Korean necks are really good, but the electronics are definitely dodgy, like dodgier than the Japanese stuff was at the time. But of course, they've improved. And by like the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, maybe, Epiphone's making everything there. Schecter, all these brands are making their stuff in Korea to like a very good quality. And now, if you buy a Korean-made guitar, you expect it to be, your Chapmans, your Schecters, your Ibanez's. It's going to be $800 to $1,200 instrument out of Korea. So now you've got Indonesia. Well, you've got China. China started in the 90s. Indonesia started in the aughts. And I think China, I think there's some truth to this. Indonesia being probably better than China right now. I don't know why Indonesia's been able to move so fast, or if it's just because Cortec has moved their factory to Indonesia, and so a lot of big brands are building out of Indonesia, so it's just been pushed better. I don't know why that is. I think both of these countries, though, China and Indonesia, are capable of making very good instruments now. Whereas 20 years ago, I don't know that I would have said that. I've owned like some Indonesian Squires that
Uh-huh.
were, I enjoyed them because they were fun guitars, but they weren't good guitars.
That's a really important distinction. Fun guitars aren't always good guitars.
Yeah.
And same thing, I've definitely massacred enough of those ply bodies to know that they're not great. People use them as modding platforms, but half the time you're rebuilding the wood as you've chunked off because it was just ply as you cut through it.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, I'm going to try to steal 4 more minutes of our time here.
All right.
And I want to MST3K this.
I have no idea what you're doing right now. You want to watch this?
We're going to all watch this together.
All right.
All right. So I'm going to start it. I need to know if you can hear it, though, because I don't know if it's going to stream the audio.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. Tell me.
Steve Rao here for
it's straight.
Guitar
Yeah, I
Podcast.
can hear it.
Right.
Today, I want to take a few minutes to talk to you about originality, what it means to listen genuine. For 468 episodes now, 60 Cycle Hum has been building creative content across ages, media platforms, and people, all the way back to the turn of the mid-2010s with Ryan Burke's discoveries in two-person live room recording, to the later mid-2010s with Ryan Burke's perfection of the wheel of pedals, to our glamorous YouTube videos of 2015 and 2016, which confused potential buyers across multiple markets, to our bit characters and memes throughout the show's history that mark the boundary of social acceptance. 60 Cycle Hum has been inventing constantly. And today we want to talk to you about some of those inventions. First, the audio one.
So Ryan was the one who was like, let's do 2 cameras.
This 2-host barely planned design was first released.
I'm not even sure if this is. We only did 2. I think 2 or 3 takes.
Name is.
And I'm not even sure if this is all from the same take.
From day one, we talked about the good and the bad.
You're not looking at either camera. That's the best
anyone
part.
Else's
yeah, I'm looking at the words that was like in between
Gas
them.
and Go short format demo video. It's now out of production. 2016 saw the wheel of pedals drop into your ear holes. This random gear swap contest is also now out of production. We also have NAMM trips, Ryan's 2017 amp journey, as well as our most forward-thinking concept, the Reverb Shootout, and one of the most requested pedal tests.
We haven't done a Reverb Shootout in a while.
And not just our podcast and videos, but things like 2 or more people talking about guitars, that rambling hour-long thing every week. The logo inside a guitar pick like you see in our videos and shirts. Throwing gear off of high places and tall things. Beards. Every one of these inventions and concepts are trademarks of 60 Cycle Hum. Does this matter?
We own beards.
Probably, for a few reasons. Friends ask us a lot about other guitar podcasts. You know, usually with a different audience, coming in from overseas, but with some familiar delusions about what is fake and what a trademark infringement is. Any clone of any one of these inventions that we've named is definitely, probably by definition, rip off 60 Cycle Hum content. What does that mean? To the podcasters and creatives that listen, you now know that you're in big trouble. We're watching you, and we're here to defend our short history and the inventions that we've designed over almost a decade. To those in the gear manufacturing and demo business, shoot us an email. We want to work with you. Stop making your own creative content. Also, making your own creative content is not enough to avoid trademark infringement. Hit us up. We will work with you. We want to be partners with you and get paid by you. We can bring genuine to your projects. And we're not being jerks or turds or trying to crush other podcasts or YouTube channels. This is about defending our history. Nearly 6 years of designing and inventing across media platforms. It's worth defending, and it's Ryan's job. And we will continue to battle and defend our intellectual property. To the listeners, what does this mean?
It's so dumb.
I know, I love
being
it.
original and listening genuine. 60 Cycle Hum's been putting cash in our equipment, workspace, gear, and into the pockets of the people working on the content we invent to make your 60 Cycle Hum experience the #1 guitar experience.
Which is us. We're the content makers.
It's our target for the next 6 years to be the most watched, the most discussed, and the most shared guitar podcast in the world. Be interesting. Listen genuine. And don't forget, only 60 Cycle Hum is #1. Stupid.
Oh, I
That
love
was
it. It's so beautiful. It's so beautifully done. The switching though, like holy crap, that's so good.
yeah, it's I think I basically tried to go point by point with the Mark Agnesi video and just make turn each one of his points into a joke.
Yeah.
And then of course that was 2020 apparently. Maybe 2019 because it says 3 years ago, but I thought it was older than that.
Yeah, no, it was that's how long ago it was. Like it was right at the height of like going into the pandemic or like I can't remember.
Yeah, oh, it's 3 years because it's not 4 years. So that video was from June 21st, 2019.
Okay.
Um,
Okay,
the,
gotcha.
the Gibson Play Authentic is that video's gone, right? No,
I
it's
hope
not
so.
gone. That video was was re-uploaded by the Music Lab on June 25th.
Oh, nice.
So they had it up and then they pulled it. Schnobel made a video about that on June 18th. So this is all basically around the same time. And of course, at the time, like I think we were doing a lot of back and forth with there's a very heavy reference to the Guitar Nerds podcast.
Yes.
And that one, because I think they had just started advertising themselves as the world's #1 guitar podcast. And we were like, well, that's fine. You can be #1. Just remember that we're the best.
No, it's beautifully done. I've done similar things in print before. Without going like way deep into it, there was to get mildly sports reference, and then we can close out. But they in the early 2010s, I live in Mississippi. Football's important down here. College football is real important.
Yeah.
So Ole Miss and Mississippi State are the big SEC schools down here, and at the time, Ole Miss was pretty terrible, and Mississippi State wasn't great either. And like some donors to the football program, I guess, who called themselves Forward Rebels, put out like these big, like full page ads in the news, in like multiple newspapers in the state. There was like, Rebels fans, are you tired of losing every Saturday? And like there was this big, long, drawn out thing of how they were trying to get everyone in the athletic department fired, basically. And I was like, this is the most ridiculous like advertising campaign I've ever seen. So I mimicked it. I took their format and took all their points and talked about the school I went to, Delta State University, had just like we lost, but went to a national championship in Division II football. So I was like, Ole Miss and Mississippi State fans, are you tired of losing? Do you want to cheer for a team that's a winner? And like talked all about this tiny little school in Mississippi and how they should go there. And it was enough that it some folks over at Ole Miss got mad about it. And they called I found out they called Delta State, the school I went to, and said, what the hell are you doing? They thought it was a school sponsored, like they had put out this advertising campaign. They're like, listen, that was an alumni. We have nothing to do with that. An alumnus. Great. Yeah.
This was a real messy time for Gibson. Yep. The Mark video comes out, I think, around the same time. McFeedback says it was the same week. I know it was around the same time. I didn't remember if it being the same week where they had some company destroying all these Firebird X's.
Yeah.
And the guy who like owned that, or who was like in charge of that, was like, I guess he would film weird stuff that they would destroy at his company. Yep. And that was one of them. And
it was a bad look. That was a real bad look. And that's when I even as someone who's a Gibson fan, they need to be called on some stuff, and they needed to be called on that. That was garbage. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't have disposed of guitars. I know everybody, that's the hanging point for people. Like, no. Companies do this all the time. They dispose of inventory that's not moving. It's actually harder to give it away than you think. So everybody's like, just give it away. It's actually a lot harder than people think it is. because there's red tape and things you got to work on.
Yeah.
But-
I think depending on if you're calling it what you're calling it, yeah, so both Sassy and Coyote Stardust said they filmed it
Yep, to prove it was
to prove
destroyed.
it was destroyed for tax write-off, to prove they were destroyed. And I understand that, but you could have done that in-house. I mean, I'm sure
Right.
you
Don't
have-
hire someone. Do that
I'm
in-house.
sure you've got a trash compactor, you know, if it's good enough for Luke Skywalker, it's good enough for Gibson.
Yeah.
But I think that, yeah, I understand that when you, what Gibson probably did is they probably said, well, all of this merchandise was defective, so they have to destroy it. They can't, I don't know if there's a situation. Yeah, that was the thing too. Michael Krause
Right.
recalls that they're full of batteries and toxic materials, so they can't give them away. I think maybe they had like lithium ion batteries or something. I don't know. McFeedback remembers it being them saying it was a shock hazard. And this was a lot of speculation. Teal Static says, I think Gibson wanted it to be leaked, you know. But it was just such a bad look.
Yeah. It was a real bad look.
And I think because also, again, they were a year into this new regime, for lack of a better word, when all this happened, and it just kind of looked like that was a real low point of people trying to be real hyped about, hey, Henry J's out, we've got this new crew, and then within a year this happens. So that was rough.
Yeah.
And
I think
I
they're in a
say it
better
was
place
rough
now.
as if it took an emotional toll on me. I mean, whatever. It made for good podcast fodder.
That's true. It did. But then it also got old because everybody covered it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Old
Yeah.
news.
hopefully they have grown from that. It seems like they have. Now I just need them to take the next steps in
Yeah.
being, you know, a team player in the space.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yep.
I'm going to go eat breakfast.
I'll enjoy breakfast. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks everyone in the chat. I saw a lot of familiar names and faces. It looks like we peaked out about 49 people. I
Yeah, look at
think,
that.
so not too bad for a Sunday morning.
No, not bad at
Yeah.
all. And
we
if
need to
were
get those
consist-
numbers way up.
Well, if this were more consistent, I'm sure they would be
Yeah.
up. You know,
Yeah, and I know well, you and I will be doing this again. I need to work out some live stream stuff with, I've got a couple other channels that want to do who have asked to guest on the pod, or asked about getting on the podcast, and because of the way
Oh.
Ryan and I do the podcast, it's real tough. But
yeah,
I figure, hey, if they can do a video podcast, then they can probably do a video live stream too. So I need to work on getting those channels lined up here too. So we'll have some rotating guests maybe.
yeah, that'd be
we can
cool.
get this going more consistently in the future. In my head, I can commit to live streaming a couple times a month, and hopefully one of those on a Sunday morning consistently. But we'll see. I don't want to promise anything. I just
Right?
know
Yeah,
that,
don't
like,
promise
what
anything.
I'd like,
You can't.
what I'd like to do. Michael Krause says, I'm off to mow my lawn and my New Balances. I did that yesterday. Well, no, my backyard does probably need to be mowed too. So maybe I'll do some more mowing this weekend. But yep, that's it. Thanks everyone. Stay grounded.
All right, y'all.
Okay, now I'm ending.
Okay.